Most of humanity has always been ruled by a pecking order of autocrats and aristocrats. And it's being proven with Donald Trump's guilty verdict on 34 counts regarding his hush money payments to an overpriced hooker like Stormy Daniels. This was possible thanks to Democrats weaponizing our very judicial system to eliminate their competition, short of disappearing Trump like Putin does with Russian dissidents. This is why Trump is the symptom to our democracy's lack of a true democratic process, but he's definitely not the solution, and neither is Biden. And Trump is most certainly not America's savior, no matter how many evangelicals still believe he's working as Jesus' personal messenger. This is how religious, delusional thinking gets in the way of an entire nation's collective future. Thanks to neurological malfunctions, not everyone has managed to personally evolve past. But then again, it's not like secular or even atheist Democrats are making the best choices in their candidates either. The fact that the majority of Biden's voters refuse to admit he's clearly in cognitive decline is as delusional as believing in guardian angels. Watching Biden speak at the press conference after Trump's guilty verdicts and how he refused to answer reporters' questions after a scripted speech proves not only Biden's mental feebleness, but his haughty entitlement to power, which is at the core of his character, which still seeps through his own senility.
Mr. President, can you tell us, sir, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir? Do you think the conviction will have an impact on the campaign? We'd love to hear your thoughts, sir.
Should he be on the ballot, sir?
It's so difficult to cut through all the miscommunication, which then becomes misinformation and even disinformation by enough bad faith actors, which both Biden and Trump seem to be as human beings. But both Biden and Trump have their media cheerleaders spreading this problem exponentially, with major media outlets like MSNBC clearly being the cheerleaders for Biden, while Fox News and so many others are all too willing to shill for Trump. In the end, we're presented with yet another false choice under the guise of democracy, because supposedly voting for anyone other than Trump or Biden is said to be a wasted vote. Or worse yet, it's a vote for the other candidate that is almost tantamount to treason in the eyes of either Democrat diehards or Republican zealots. Every time I've mentioned I would rather vote for a libertarian candidate, depending on whether I say this to a Republican or a Democrat, the answer is the same from either side: that a third-party vote is a wasted vote against their candidate of choice, of course. But this false choice can be resolved. There are two major solutions to help minimize this false choice problem. The first is allowing everyone to vote in the primary election process for both parties. In other words, even if you're a Republican, you should be allowed to vote for the Democrats' primary candidates and vice versa. As a Democrat, you should be allowed to vote for the Republicans' primaries. And it's been experimented and seems to have worked in states like Alaska, where they've managed to cut through the ideological purity and bluster of certain candidates. The second solution is ranked choice voting, which works by allowing people to vote for all candidates essentially, but as first choice, second choice, third choice, etc. This allows voters to break past the psychological block that presents the very false choice we're all left with, thanks to a predominantly two-party system that mostly represents the interests of their biggest donors, not necessarily we the people. Our political pendulum does not need to keep swinging so wildly between election cycles. We can learn to vote more on policies and sensible principles instead of choosing just between two parties, and let alone narcissistic, opportunistic personalities like Trump or Biden. Because the worst part about Trump's conviction is how so much of the nation is now in the grips of Trump's personal legal worries. It's as if millions of Americans are hanging on every word he says now as he plays the role of a victim, despite having misappropriated funds for paying off an overpriced hooker he had sex while his third trophy wife was pregnant. Yet it's a legal head-scratcher as to why Trump wasn't already in prison for the near insurrection that was January 6th. Particularly after trying to convince his then vice president to break the law by overturning the Electoral College vote, which was a foregone conclusion. not to mention convincing tens of thousands of his most ardent supporters to show up to Congress in a mob-like fashion that could have been predicted to become the same disaster as any of the hundreds of BLM-backed riots throughout 2020 the year before. Granted, it's almost equally criminal how Democrats are practically gloating over their weaponization of our judicial system to try and hamper Trump's chances at winning the election, considering their own candidate is a fast-aging, feeble-minded career politician with a number of crimes and misdeeds of his own, beginning with the handling of his own classified files, his son Hunter Biden's pay-for-play scheme with Burisma, and his total lack of character regarding his plagiarizing speeches throughout his career, and simply lying about his first wife's fatal car crash by making it seem she was killed by a drunk driver when she was not, in order to curry sympathy from voters. But then again, these are the types of people who make it to the highest levels of power, unfortunately. Because it's not necessarily that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's that people who seek power are usually corrupt to begin with. They're not about solving problems and making life more equitable for everyone, because it's never really about public service any more than it is about self-service. Yet these are the two corrupt at their core characters that we have to choose from once again. And millions of Americans have been conditioned to believe that you've got no choice in the matter when we actually do. But you won't hear that from most mainstream media outlets and their overpaid, glorified corporate lackey talking heads, who aren't really journalists interested in the truth any more than career politicians are interested in public service or a true democracy for and by the people. If I got anything wrong in this video, please let me know in the comments below. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for upcoming videos, and check out the links below for my original art and merchandise. And thanks for watching.